Hi, how's everyone doing today? I'm Ranger Aimee. I work at Lava Beds National Monument in Tule Lake, California. Not there right now. I'm here in my backyard and ready to grill some s'mores because if you can believe it, it's Memorial Day weekend 2020. Memorial Day is a day where we honor the men and women who gave their lives while serving in the United States military. It's been observed as a federal holiday since 1971. Unofficially, it marks the beginning of summer. And so normally for us at Lava Beds, this is a time where we're gearing up for the summer. We're starting our interpretive programming. For you, that may mean getting together with family and friends and celebrating those loved ones who lost their lives in the military or are still currently serving, barbecuing, making your s'mores as well, or trying to get outdoors, get to a local, national, state, or regional park. So as we're still doing our best to figure out what our summer is going to look like, and we won't be starting our interpretive programming this weekend, we thought we'd bring one of our interpretive programs to you. So if you'd like to stick around for some more and learn some about our bats, stay tuned for a 35-minute presentation called Bat Mythbusters. Hope to see you soon.
All right, we've moved inside, and even though I'm inside, I just have to wear a flat hat. I'm doing an evening program, so normally I'd be in the campground amphitheater at Lava Beds in the park, and yeah, just gotta wear my flat hat. So we'll get ready to bust some myths about bats. And yeah, like I said, I'm Ranger Aimee. I've worked at Lava Beds for almost 4 years. It'll be 4 years this September 2020. Before that, worked at Muir Woods National Monument north of San Francisco for not quite 3.5 years. And before that, I was a seasonal. That's how a lot of us get started, working little like 4 to 6 month positions at different parks. Since I worked 3 seasons at Carlsbad Caverns National Park in New Mexico, 1 season at Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park in Colorado, and I got my start at the Park Service almost 10 years ago, yeah, almost exactly, back at Wilson's Creek National Battlefield in Missouri, and that's my home state, that's where I'm from. Missouri is actually known as, informally kind of, as the cave state. Over 5,000 caves there, lots of different bats. I did get involved in learning about caves in Missouri. I was a tour guide at a few different caves there, but didn't really get to know much about the bat populations there, so I've really enjoyed getting to work for the National Park Service and learn more about the bats. And before we get started in our program today, I do have to give a huge thank you to an intern we had back in 2017, Dominique. She actually created this program. I've edited it just a little bit over time for different events I've used it for besides just doing regular evening programs, but Dominique was wonderful and did a lot of research in our park for the bats, and so she actually created this, and I got to give it one weekend whenever she wasn't able to and just really enjoyed it. So I really appreciate Dominique being a friend to our bats and creating this Bat Mythbusters program. Okay, so bats and popular culture. Before we start busting some myths, we'll talk a bit just about how often bats are portrayed. Often whenever this slide pops up in the evening program, people will start to laugh. I've led it to elementary students as well, and they're always really excited about the Lego Batman that's featured. But yeah, we have Lego Batman, we have Dracula, have kind of a scary looking blue bat with like these teeth flying across, and then a whole bunch of bats with crazy looking eyes flying out of a kind of spooky looking house. So often not portrayed the best. They're often kind of in like more spooky situations. There's where you have your bats. So very often in bats in popular culture are going to be, yeah, something that's a little scary. Ooh, global bat species richness. Bats are found in every continent in the world except Antarctica. And so we have a map here showing the different disbursement of bats, and if you see like really red areas on this map, like we have in South America, some areas in Central America, I'm kind of glancing at it myself. Let's see here, kind of Southeast Asia and into the islands below that. It looks like those are areas that have some really high populations of bats. And then you look at the United States, and we are in kind of the blue, light blue in our area. So compared to the rest of the world, where Lava Beds is not quite as rich in bats as other areas of the world, but I think if I click here, there we go, it zoomed in a little bit, and now we have a map showing the richness of bats just in the United States, and it has similar coloring where if you see the red and the yellow and the orange, that's signifying areas that have more bat species than other parts of the United States. And so you see areas in the Midwest and South that are kind of yellow. There are a lot of cave and karst features in that part of the country. Again, from Missouri, lots of caves there. And then you look over where lava beds is, and again you see some lots of warm colors. You see yellow and orange and red really nearby. So a very cave rich area. Lava beds, there's over 800 lava tube type caves just within the parks and the area surrounding it as well. There's more caves like in Modoc National Forest. So tons of bats here as well. We'll talk a bit more about how many species we have a little bit later. So in terms of the whole world, lava beds isn't the most rich in bat species, but in terms of the country, the United States, it is pretty high in the amount of bats that we have compared to the rest of the country. Let's see what's next. Oh yeah, we get to bust some myths already. So fact, bats sleep upside down. And we have a really funny picture of bats looking like they're kind of breakdancing. They're right side up, and then they just are all kind of hunched with their wings. And so what do you all think? Bats sleep upside down. Fact, or is this a myth we gotta bust? And yeah, that's confirmed. Bats do sleep upside down. May seem kind of strange to us. Why do they do that? So again, fact that bats sleep upside down, and we have a photo of a bunch of bats all clustered together sleeping upside down. And there's a few reasons that they do that. Roosting upside down at first reads is it's advantageous for flight. It makes sense to them. Whereas for us, the resting position for our hand is out, like I'm showing my hand, wiggling my fingers right now. For a bat, the resting position of their foot is in a clenched position. It's actually more effort for them to open up their foot and release from the wall. So it's just more advantageous for their flight. They can just kind of drop from the ceiling and go and get what they're wanting to get their insects or get outside. And then anatomy and body size adapted for hanging upside down. That's what our second caption says. And yeah, again, that's just the position of their foot is in that clenched position. It's really good too for staying away from predators. I know bats may not seem like the most appealing thing to eat, but if you've ever seen like the outflight that happens at Carlsbad Caverns National Park, some visitors get a really interesting treat in that they get to see some sort of a critter, an owl or a ringtail cat, something waiting for that huge outflight to happen. And they're actually there hoping that they can snag a bat coming out. I mean, hundreds of thousands of bats, your chances are pretty good. So things do eat bats. And so if they're up on the ceiling, they're going to be further away from those other predators and such that may want to munch on them for a little snack. So it's a pretty wise thing that they sleep upside down, and it's great that they have the ability to. They're so small that they're not really affected by like the blood rushing to their head like we would be if we were upside down. But yeah, we haven't adapted to that. So we'll stay right side up. Let's see what's next. Oh, this is a fun one. Myth. Our caption says bats are flying mice, and we have two photos here of some bats that do indeed look very much like flying mice. And so what do you all think? I mean, do you have to bust this one, or do you all think this is true? I'm gonna click and let's see. Busted. Yeah, that's not true. Bats are not flying mice. So let's learn a bit more. So again, bats are not flying mice. That's what our caption here at the top says. And we have a bat swooping down and picking up, looks like a scorpion. So that might be a pallid bat. We'll chat just a bit about them later, a bit more about them, excuse me. So they're not rodents. They're in different orders than mice. Mice are in Rodentera. Bats are in Cheiroptera. That literally means hand wing, because their wings are actually very similar to our hands. Our next bullet says they're more closely related to primates and to humans, because yeah, again, their body shape is actually more similar to ours than we maybe could believe. And then same as rodents. I mean, they are mammals. They give birth to live young, and again, that's also similar to primates and to humans. And then our last bullet says they're the only true flying mammal. They're so lucky. I feel like whenever you ask somebody, what superpower do you wish you had? Some people will be like, oh, invisibility. But to be able to fly would be really cool. So bats are the only mammal that can do that, these little flying bats. So let's see what's next. Ooh, this is a fun one. Myth, bats are blind. And we have a photo of a bat that has very large ears, actually. So is that a myth or that we need to bust, or do y'all think that is true? Bats are blind. So let's see if we can bust this one or not. Busted. Yeah, bats are not blind. So our next caption, our next slide says bats can see, but ... They're primarily going to use echolocation. And I love in my programs, I ask, what is echolocation? And so often someone can really wonderfully explain it. It's basically they're making a noise that's pretty much undetectable by us, but it's bouncing off of the object that they're interested in either finding to snack on or trying to figure out to avoid. You know, they're flying in the dark, so they're trying not to run into anything, and so that sound bouncing back allows them to kind of figure out where they're going and to navigate their way around, and again also to find food. So that's primarily what they're using. And with using that, they can, this next bullet says, they can detect an object as fine as human hair in total darkness. And then our last bullet says 2 billion times more efficient than any human system. That's incredible. So bats can see, but yeah, a lot of times they're going to use that echolocation. And there's actually fruit bats that can see better than people can. So they can definitely see, but they're using other modes of getting around whenever they're out and about in the dark, finding their food. So that myth has been busted. Oh, I like this. This is a fun one. Myth, all bats have rabies. And again, in my evening program, this photo of a bat hanging upside down with its mouth open, kind of looking really scary. I ever had a visitor one time be like, I think that bat does. Yeah, this bat does look a little scary. But let's see with that myth if it's true or if we can bust it. Oh yeah, busted. Not all bats have rabies. Some bats have rabies. That's what the caption on our next slide says. But less than 1% of bats have rabies. I don't think I knew that fact until I worked at Carlsbad Caverns, and so that's always one I've kept in my pocket. Anytime you meet somebody who's afraid of bats, you're just like, well, actually, less than 1% of bats have rabies. I prefer to say that than 1% of bats have rabies. That makes it sound like 1% of all bats are just going to have rabies. Less than 1% of bats have rabies. I feel like phrasing is important. And let's see, we'll look down a little bit, the next caption. Healthy bats tend to avoid humans, and signs of sick bats, they're on the ground, unable to fly, lets you come near it. Most likely if a bat was sick and potentially had rabies, you would know because it wouldn't be acting normally. Typically a bat is going to want to just be minding its own business. We are a lot larger than pretty much all bats in the whole world, and so they're going to be more afraid of us than we are of them, if you can believe that. As I know some of you maybe aren't super fond of bats, but they should just, if you see one in the day, they might be flying around, yeah, just kind of out of curiosity, but they're mainly just hanging there sleeping because bats sleep in the day and they go out and find their food at night. Those insect-eating bats do. And so they tend to avoid us and just kind of mind their own business. But if you do see one acting strange, then the next bullet says to report any sick bats to State Wildlife Agency. And yeah, at Lava Beds, you're welcome to tell one of us rangers at the front desk, and we may report that to one of our park scientists. The bat may ultimately have to be taken out of the park, somewhere we can get more care. But yeah, definitely just let us know if it was acting strangely. But if it's, again, hanging from the ceiling, just kind of flies by you really quick, that's not really super strange. It would be more strange if we saw it like flopping around on the ground or something like that, or like kind of crawling or something. And then the last one says, contact health professional if you touch a bat. Yeah, only if you're trained, like even if you had a bat that was in your house or somewhere where you don't typically have bats or want to have bats, you want them to be in what you kind of classify as their own home, their own habitat, you should probably get someone who's a trained professional to deal with that bat. So even though, again, less than 1% of bats have rabies, it's still a wild animal that you don't want to disturb or bother too much unless you're trained to do that. So contact a health professional. If you have touched one, hopefully, most likely, you'll be fine. And again, you could just avoid that by not touching it yourself in the first place if you're not trained to do so. Let's see what's next. This is a fun one. Myth. bats will fly and get tangled in your hair. And we have an image here of all these bats flying around. And let's see if this one is true or if one we can bust. Yeah, busted. Not true. So myth that bats will fly and get tangled in your hair is busted. Bats will not get tangled in your hair. So I kind of mentioned this in the previous slides that bats, they may fly close to new objects out of curiosity. I've had that happen to me before, getting ready for an event a few years ago, and where we have some of our supplies for different events is stored up like in the second floor of a building, and it's kind of attic-like. And I was up moving things, and I woke up the bat. It was kind of early morning. It's a pretty large bat, and it flew like right by my face and my hair. I mean, I could feel it. It was crazy. I was just like, whoa. I was kind of waking up still, it felt like, you know, first thing getting to work in the morning, but that really did it for me. But it was just curious. It's like, who's here? This is my home. I live over in that crevice over there. What are you doing in here making all this noise? So normally they're just going to do that out of curiosity. And then the next one says bats are agile and intelligent enough not to get stuck in your hair. Bats are afraid of humans and try to stay away from people. So it kind of goes with healthy bats should be trying to stay away from people. And so then most likely bats are not going to get tangled in your hair. So we have busted that myth as well. Oh yeah, this is a fun one. Myth, all bats suck blood. And we have a photo here of a like bat kind of face on, head on here with its teeth out. It's a pretty common fear that people have, besides bats are going to get stuck in their hair, is also that bats are going to suck their blood. And so let's see if this is true or if it's a myth that we can bust. Oh yeah, busted. Very nice. Some bats suck blood. So our first bullet here says only 3 out of over 1,100 species of bats do. And most microbats are insectivores. All of our bats, lava bats, the last bullet actually already says that. They all are insectivores. And there are no vampire bats in the United States. So if you all remember the map earlier, that was showing the richness of bat species all throughout the entire world. And we had a lot of warm colors that was representing where there were more bats. In Central America and South America, that's more of where our vampire bat friends live. And then also vampire bats typically aren't going to bother humans for our blood. They're going to be getting just like a tablespoon or 2 of blood from livestock. They can make like a little cut, or there may already be a cut there, and they're just going to slurp some blood from it. So kind of a strange diet, but very appropriate name, vampire bats. But again, you won't find any here in the United States. If you're traveling to Central or South America, you would find some there. Myth. Bats aren't that important to humans. Oh my goodness, Dominique. I love this one. During my programs, I have a lot of people there. They're always like, no, busted, busted. So yeah, we'll go ahead and bust that one. Bats aren't that important to humans. Yeah, they definitely are for a few reasons. So we'll talk about a few benefits of bats. And we have a photo of a bat who's a pollinator. There's 2 pollinating bats found in the United States. The lesser long-nosed bat, see if I got that name right, and the Mexican long-tongued bat. Neither of those are found in lava beds. You find them more in like the southwest part of the United States, and they're migrating from further down south. They can carry seeds of like avocados and cashews, and then they're pollinating mangoes and agave and bananas. So very, very useful. So they're very useful as pollinators. Our middle photo we have of a bat carrying an insect is showing that they're also excellent pest control. Really great natural insecticides. They can eat up to half their body weight in bugs every night. And I guess note that insect-eating bats aren't huge. Like if you go put your thumbs together, your hands out, kind of make a little bat yourself, this would be about how big insect-eating bats are when they're in flight. But not super huge, but a nursing female, because they're mammals like us, so they give birth to live young, and their females do nurse those young. They can eat up to like their entire body weight in bugs. So thousands and thousands of bugs every night. And if it's a significant colony of bugs, or excuse me, of bats, it's going out to eat these bugs. And that's a lot of really valuable pest control for the area. Lava Beds is in Siskiyou and Modoc County here in very far northeastern California. And so that's providing just tons and tons of pest control for the local farmers that we have here and all the agriculture. It's wonderful. And then our last photo, I sometimes will make my visitors guess on the programs and such. I'm like, oh, and what is this a photo of? The heading is ecosystem value. And it's hard to tell, it's a small photo, but it is a photo of bat droppings, also known as bat guano. And it's, I don't know, maybe not the most pleasant thing to talk about, but this can be a super valuable ecosystem for cave life to live and to thrive in. There's cave life known as troglazines. Those are just kind of like your cave visitors, just hanging out for a little bit, maybe just some temporary shelter, maybe just finding some water. Arguably, bats could be troglazines, so they're just kind of in the caves to sleep, and then they're leaving. And then there's also your troglophiles and your troglobites, and they're more using the caves all the time. Troglophiles can live up on the surface. They can hack it if they want to. Troglobites, though, are only in the caves, never could live on the surface. So this could be really valuable places for them to find other troglophiles or troglobites to eat. Could be warm and cozy. It's like a big place for them to live. And then you maybe visited caves like Carlsbad Caverns where they actually had mining of guano. But maybe before the cave was made into a protected cave, it's actually really valuable fertilizer. I should look up how much that's used today. I mean, some of those areas where guano mining took place, now again, they're protected, so that doesn't happen anymore. That would be kind of a interesting, maybe kind of gross thing to know. But yeah, they're very important to us, lots of benefits of bats. Oh my goodness, morbid. Apologies, my screen is partly in the way, but a caption just popped up that said, imagine if all the bats across and I think it says world, again, my camera's blocking it, across the world disappeared. So it'd be a bit different of a world, wouldn't it? And a world without bats is definitely something we've had to imagine a little bit with something known as white nose syndrome and seeing the spread of that. In the winter of 2006 in New York, there were bats seen dead on the ground, and it was kind of strange because this is the time of year that those bats should have been hibernating, and it appeared as they had attempted to go outside while they were hibernating and sought out food that wasn't there in the middle of the winter. Insect-eating bugs, there's no insects for them to, insect-eating bats, excuse me, there's no insects for them to eat. And so unfortunately those bats had died. And white nose syndrome is caused by a fungus. So in our photo on our slide here, we have a photo of about 8 bats that have a little white fungus on their nose, so hence the name, white nose syndrome. So caused by a fungus, not harmful to us, but definitely very harmful to the bats. It's really irritating to them, and it grows on their nose and wings and other soft tissue, and seems to really be affecting hibernating bats. That fungus thrives at that temperature of that that they make when they're all hibernating and clustered together, and it's basically either making them wake up and seek out food that's not there, or it just keeps waking them up so much then they're burning their fat reserves while they should be hibernating and be stowing those. There's some bats that are really fully asleep during the entirety of their hibernation, and others are waking up some, but when they get white nose syndrome, it's definitely making them wake up too much. So it's spreading bat to bat. There at first was thought that maybe it was just going to stay in a certain part of the United States and Canada, and it could make its way further west. But then unfortunately it crossed over the Mississippi River, then it crossed over the Rocky Mountains. It was found in Washington State a few years ago, and then just last summer, the fungus was found about 3 hours south of us at Lava Beds, not at Lava Beds, but 3 hours south of the park. So it's getting close and kind of converging on us. And so again, even though the fungus probably most easily is spreading bat to bat, we could be spreading the spores that cause the fungus as well. So it's not harmful to us, but we need to do our part to protect our bat friends and make sure that we are not spreading the fungus to them. So whenever you visit Lava Beds or another cave park, you may get asked questions asking, are you wearing any clothes or shoes or have any gear that you have taken into another bat roost? And so, caves, mines, bridges, all sorts of things can be areas where bats roost. And so just make sure that you're wearing all different things. If you're a pretty regular caver, do your best to be wearing different caving clothes, knee pads and such. It's kind of difficult though. I know not everyone has 2 sets of those bits of gear, 2 helmets, 2 pair of shoes. So in that case, you could wipe them down. We give wipes to people when they need to wipe down things like flashlights or cameras or helmets. You could wash your clothes with really, really hot water, dry them on really high heat as well, maybe even do it once or twice. And then one thing that's kind of difficult to clean are your shoes, your hiking boots. And most often folks aren't going to have like multiple pair of really heavy duty hiking boots. So we do at Lava Beds have a bio cleaning station, and that's a little station with some solution in it that people can just walk across, and it cleans off the bottom of their shoes. So you could use that as well whenever you visit the park, or if you do happen to have another pair of shoes, you can do that. Or if you're comfortable putting your shoes in the washing machine, you can do that just by themselves on delicate with hot water, and hopefully that would do the job as well. Most likely, visit Lava Beds, we're still going to make you walk across our VioClean station or give you wipes for whatever items, but just to kind of cover our bases. But it really helps if you're already aware of white nose syndrome and what you can do to prevent the spread of the fungus that causes it. So again, not harmful to us, but it has killed about 6.7 million bats since it was first found in bats in 2006. Don't entirely have a cure for it at this time. Not entirely certain where it came from. Believe maybe Europe, and the bats there just have a resilience to it that ours here in North America do not yet. So yeah, we definitely don't want to imagine a world without bats, but we have seen a decrease in them. Fortunately, at Lava Beds, we do not yet have white nose syndrome. We're doing our best to keep it that way, and really appreciate it if you do as well. And yes, bats at Lava Beds, like I keep mentioning, we have a lot. There are over a dozen types. The most recent count is 15 different kinds of bats. And so I believe here we have a photo of some 3 Townsend big-eared bats all clustered together. And then we have a map of Lava Beds kind of showing the different areas that we have. We have kind of the northern part, we call it like our Great Basin sagebrush and grasslands. We have our juniper brushlands. And then it's pretty fun. We border the Modoc National Forest. So then whenever you get into certain boundaries of the park, you get to where it is really lush, and you can find ponderosa pine. So that area on the map says ponderosa pine forest, also lodgepole pines. It's really beautiful. The park is about 47,000 acres. About 28,000 of that acreage actually is designated wilderness, where you could do wilderness camping. And then the Modoc National Forest surrounds us on every boundary except to our north. And to our north is a really nice fish and wildlife site, that Tule Lake. And so there's a lot of really great stuff all around us and within the park as well. And so that provides a lot of really wonderful habitats for all of our mini bats to live. So let's see, I think the next slide might be more some photos of those bats. Yep, there they are. Oh, and apologies, my camera is blocking the canyon bat. So you can see photos of all of the different types of bats that we have at Lava Beds. And yeah, again, in the bottom corner where my camera is and where I'm at, I'm blocking the name canyon bat, but at least you can see most of that bat pretty well. But we have on the top Townsend big-eared bat, hoary bat, little brown bat, and then going down we got the Brazilian free-tailed bat. They're also known as the Mexican free-tailed bat. Fringe myotis, long-eared myotis, pallid bat, Yuma myotis, long-legged myotis, big brown bat, California myotis, western red bat, western small-footed myotis, silver-haired bat, and again the one that I'm blocking, the canyon bat. So many different bats. We do study some of them that are species of concern for California, like the Townsend big-eared bat. And so that's one that we can study them too. They hibernate, so we can in the winter months go and do counts of them and see how they're doing. We have some pretty significant colonies of them actually. And then it's funny to really get this close-up view of them looking at the pictures. The hoary bat, that is one of our larger bats that we have. They can be about 25 to 30 grams, which if you had like, I don't know, like I think 5 or 6 nickels, that'd be about how much that weighs. And then our smallest bat, our smaller one, is a western small-footed myotis. They're only about 4 to 6 grams. So if you have like 1 nickel, that would be about what they weigh. Sometimes folks, they've been traveling or been to a zoo and they've seen those really, really large fruit bats that they have in like Southeast Asia and through Australia. We obviously don't have any of those here. All of our bats eat insects. Those though can be 2 to 3 feet tall with a 6-foot wingspan. I once went on a program and the park ranger accidentally said they can be 6 feet tall. That was pretty crazy. A bat who's like as tall as we are, but their wingspan is 6 feet, but yeah, their height about 2 to 3 feet. The world's smallest bat, also found in Southeast Asia, is the bumblebee bat, and they're about the size of a bumblebee. So a lot of variation in our bats. Again, they all eat insects, so they're all not super huge. Just do your little kind of make your own bat here like we did earlier. But we do have a bat that can also eat scorpions and centipedes, and we had a photo of that one earlier, and that is our pallid bat. So it's the third row down on the left. They eat bugs, but they can also eat these other things, and they're apparently not impacted by eating those things that hurt to us. If it bit us, it would maybe cause a bit of a nasty infection. They're not impacted by that, so they have the ability to eat centipedes and scorpions and other things that may be a little more tricky to do. So just a few quick interesting things about our bats, and then I think the next slide goes into a bit more detail about some of the ones that we are studying. Nope, I guess that's a little later. This one's fun. So I keep stressing, how small our insect-eating bats are. So I don't know if we have a photo here that's zoomed out a little bit, because if we were to zoom in like we will here in a little bit, there is actually a bat in this photo, if you can believe it. This is just outside of the visitor center. And so I'll give you all a moment to look at it, see if you can find it. Let's see if y'all found it. I have pretty good luck when I'm showing this to a group of people. They normally can somehow find it. There we go. So I made a little error for you all, and it's pointing out that the bat is in the crevice of this kind of little nook right outside the visitor center. And I think we got, a little closer up view of that. It's potentially a Mexican or Brazilian free-tailed bat. It looks like it has a little tail sticking out that isn't like a part of the wing membrane like a lot of bats are, and so that could be signifying that it's that type of bat. It can actually use its tail to swoop up bugs, which I think is pretty cool. Scoop them right up and eat them. Let's see what we got next. Okay, so here it goes into a little bit more about some of the different bats that we're studying. So again, we're studying the Townsend big-eared bat and the pallid bat, and both of those actually are species of concern for California. Over the whole country, they're doing okay, but in California state, for some reason, not as much. And then the Brazilian or Mexican free-tailed bat. I've heard them called that interchangeably. When I worked at Carlsbad Caverns, I felt like the preferred name was Mexican free-tailed, and here we tend to use both. But it's mainly due because those are migratory species, and it's not entirely known where they migrate to. I don't know if y'all have ever been involved in like bird banding. It's very difficult to do bat banding. They don't like it very well. So you can attempt to band a bat, but the little indicator that you put on them may not last very long. So I believe there has been a Mexican free-tail found in Mexico, or maybe one found in Brazil, and that's kind of given them their name, since it's just not entirely known where they go to. But yeah, we are able to do some different research on these different types of bats. For the Brazilian free-taileds, they like to be in some really significant colonies, huge. Again, if you've been across by caverns, just watch them fly out, and it can take like an hour or more just to watch all these bats pour out of the cave. So we actually have a pretty significant colony ourselves of Brazilian free-taileds in our wilderness, and very impossible to get to except for a few of our park scientists. But they can go out there and do out-flight counts of them, and it's a colony that is actually pretty comparable to some larger ones found in other parts of the United States. And then the Townsend big-ear and the pallid, they're doing other counts of those. Yeah, maybe in the winter months when they're hibernating, they're going to be doing some counts of them and seeing how they're doing and if they're being impacted yet by white nose syndrome. Since again, we're still trying to prevent the spread of that, because we still do not yet have it at lava beds, but it's converging on us. It's in Washington State. It's found the fungus 3 hours south of us, so it's like, I feel like it's getting a little closer, which is kind of scary. But we'll continue to research these bats in particular, our park scientists will, and learn as much as we can about them. And so then how can you help? There's a photo here of, it's actually at World Migratory Bird Day a few years ago at Muir Woods. There were people there with bats, because some bats are migratory. And so they were there telling the stories of migratory bats. I thought, oh, how fun. And I was so happy to see an old friend, because at the time I had just came from working at Carlsbad Caverns. So to see an old friend, a Mexican free-tailed bat, that's what's pictured here, being held by someone with 2 white gloved hands. It was really thrilling. And I'm like, oh, can I take a photo? And she's like, oh, of course. And it looks not very happy. It looks like it's like, screaming at me. But they are really, really wonderful creatures. And I mean, so one way you can help is just by helping to dispel those myths about bats. I mean, what are myths? Typically stories that they're not true. And so today, just helping to bust all of these myths with me about bats and able to share those with your friends and family when they're like, oh, I don't like bats because they all have rabies, or I don't like bats because they're going to get caught in your hair. You can be like, actually, you don't use that voice, but it's kind of fun. Actually, less than 1% of bats have rabies, or something like that. Or actually, they can move very well and they're not going to get caught in your hair. And just let them know that. So dispelling those myths. Also, being aware of white nose syndrome and what it is doing to bat populations throughout North America, and doing your part, making sure, again, what you're wearing is completely different than anything that's been to another bat roost, or that it's been washed on like super, super warm, high heat, high heated water, and then dried in high heat would be great as well. And again, we do have ways to clean things, but best is just, do your best not to wear those things, or to kind of have cleaned them yourself. And we may even just reclean them when you visit, just to be on the safe side. It always does help though when folks are aware of that, at least, so they're not wondering, why are you asking me if I've been another bat roost outside of here? It's to prevent that spread of white nose syndrome. And then I don't know if any of you all have heard of bat houses. They are these little houses that you can build a little bit away from your home. Maybe consider building them where there's some sort of like a little water source for them. And bats can use those, and it's really helpful for migratory bats. They can use those as they're migrating from one home to another, as they're passing through, and to rest for a little while. I have met folks who they would love to build a bat house because they have bats somewhere. They would really rather not have bats. Like they have a big pile of wood somewhere next to their house, and they're like, oh, every time I go and I get a piece of that wood for our fire or whatever, there's a bat there, and it really worries me, just picking up a piece of wood. And I'm like, you can attempt to build a bat house. It might make the bat move from that pile of wood to the bat house, but sometimes if bats have already found somewhere that they really enjoy living around your home, that's just where they're going to go. Lava beds, we're also near to Tule Lake National Monument. It tells the story of the Tule Lake Segregation Center, as well as Camp Tule Lake, which originally began as a Civilian Conservation Corps camp. And in there today, those buildings that are still remaining of that camp, there are, there's a bat colony in one of them. And they've done some things to try to get them to move a little bit to another area of the building. Eventually it's just gotten to where they're like, you know what, they're just gonna keep using this building, aren't they? So they are wild animals. We can do our best to kind of give them some habitat. So most likely, if they've already found a home that they like, they're going to continue to use that, as they do our lava tube caves and other karst features and such that we have in the park. So lots of different things that you can do to help, and we very, very much appreciate it. But the first thing is just being a friend to bats and doing your best to dispel those myths about them, since there's a lot of them out there and they're very misunderstood. All right. All right, well, again, I'm Ranger Aimee. Thank you so much for joining my evening program today. Though you might be watching this another time of day, or not even today. It's about Memorial Day weekend of 2020. That's fine. That's the beauty of having this just saved as a link on our YouTube channel. Hopefully folks can watch it anytime they want and keep busting myths about bats to help these misunderstood animals become a bit better understood. So again, thank you so much for joining me. I hope we are able to see you all out at Lava Beds National Monument. Feel free to send us messages on our Facebook if you have any questions about this program, emails to our information account. We love hearing from folks and hearing any questions you have about our bat populations or just about the park in general. So again, thank you so much, and see you soon at Lava Beds National Monument.